Hello, my name is Ivo, I'm the founder of Slicknote, and I'm going to show you how to get started with Slicknote and build GraphQL APIs that can power all your websites and mobile applications. To get started with Slicknote, we need to install the Slicknode CLI. We can install it from npm. We installed it as a global dependency so that it's available everywhere on our computer. And this is going to set up the Slicknode CLI in our computer that we can use to create and manage Slicknode projects. So now we have that installed. If we run Slicknode, we see a list of all the commands that are available. So this is working. And now let's create a new Slicknode project. So to create a new project, we're using the Slicknode init command. Then we give it a name. And then we hit enter. And this is going to create a new Slicknode project. So the first time you execute this command, it's going to ask you for your login credentials of your Slicknode account. If you don't have a Slicknode account yet, just go to sleeknote.com, sign up for an account, it's free, and then you can enter your credentials here. Okay, so now our GraphQL API is all set up, and let's see what this looks like. So Slicknode automatically creates a folder which is named after the name that we gave it in the init command. So we change into this directory, and then we can open this in our favorite code editor. So let's take a look at what Slicknode created for us. Every Slicknode project has a Slicknode YAML file in the root directory of the project. When we open this, we see that there's dependencies defined. Those are all the modules that are part of our Slicknode project. When we first create a project, there's only the core modules installed. We have an auth module, which adds authentication functionality. Then we have a core module, which contains all the base types. And we have a relay module, which adds relay functionality to our Slicknode project. So now let's add some more modules to add some more functionality to our Slicknode API. We open the terminal again, and then we use the Slicknode CLI to add some more modules. The command is Slicknode module add, and then let's say we want to add image functionality, and we also want to add advanced content management functionality. So we add those two modules. You can find a list of modules in the documentation. Let's add this. And now we can see it added those dependencies to our Slicknode YAML file. Right now, they're only on our local machine. So if we want to deploy them and add them to our API, we simply run the Slicknode deploy command. When we run the Slicknode deploy command, it's going to compare the local state of our Slicknode project with the state in the cloud. Then it says what kind of changes will be applied. Then we can confirm this. And now the changes are applied to the Slicknode cloud into our API. So this is how we can add built-in modules to our Slicknode project. Now let's create a custom module from scratch. We use the Slicknode module create command for this. We give it a name. Let's say we want to create a blog application. Then I hit enter. And at first it's going to ask me to enter a namespace for the module. This is going to be the namespace that will be prepended to all the types in that module, and it has to be unique within your project. I just use the suggestion here by hitting enter. Here we can customize what it's going to be labeled in the admin interface. I hit enter as well. And now I can see it has added a new module to my dependencies in the Slicknode YAML file. We can see it is a private module, and the structure for that module is going to be located under this path here. Now let's open up the module that Slicknode created for us. When we open up the module folder, we can see that Slicknode created a few files for us. We have a Slicknode YAML file inside of the module folder, which contains the configuration of the module. Then we have a schema GraphQL file where we can define all the types and the GraphQL schema of that module. And then we have a few other files like a package.json file, a source file. They're not required, but they allow us to add custom functionality and code. We can add custom business logic. Now let's open the schema GraphQL file. Here we can define all the types and data models of that module using the GraphQL schema definition language. We can see that Slicknode already created a few example types that we can use for inspiration. And now we can start to customize the data model. Let's say we want to add a header image to the blog page type. We just add a new field, and we give it a type, and then we save this file. And now we can deploy the local changes to the cloud using the Slicknode CLI. Run Slicknode deploy, and now it's comparing the local state to the state in the cloud. It asks us if you want to confirm those changes. We confirm this, and now it's deploying all the changes and adding our module to the Slicknode API. Let's see what that looks like in the Slicknode console. We open the console by running Slicknode console, and this opens up our web browser. Inside of the console, we can see the blog module that we just added. We also see our page type, and if we click on it, we have a data browser where we can add new pages. Let's add a page. Now that we have some content in the database, we can use the GraphQL API to retrieve the content. Let's open the API playground. And here on the left side, we can see an explorer that we can use to build the GraphQL queries. Let's say we want to retrieve our page by its slug. The slug was first page, and we want to retrieve the title, the text, and the slug. Then we run this query, and we get a JSON response that we can then use in our front-end applications. If we also want to retrieve a thumbnail of the header image, we add the header image field, and then we can use the URL field to generate a thumbnail on demand. We can add a height, we can add a width, and a resize method, and this automatically generates the thumbnail for us. We can add our custom values here, and when we run the query, it automatically returns the URL with the generated thumbnail. Now let's go back to our schema GraphQL file. In Slicknote, there are three different types. First, there's the type that just defines the data structure and doesn't implement the node interface. This just defines the data structure, which you can then use to model the data for your extensions, etc. When you add the node interface, this tells Slicknode that you want to persist the data in the database. It generates database tables and all the CRUD mutations. Part of the node interface is just the ID field. So you have to add this ID field to your type, and then you can add all your custom fields. The third type is a content type. A content type has advanced content management functionality like internationalization support, a content management workflow, and a version history. To create a content type, all you have to do is add the content interface to your type definition. We can see an example of a content type in the code that the Slicknode CLI generated for us when we first created the module. So here, for example, we have a blog post type that implements the node interface and the content interface. The node interface contains the field ID, which is added to the type here, and the content interface contains all those fields here that enable advanced content management functionality like internationalization and the content workflow. When we uncomment this and save the file, we can now deploy it to the cloud. We use the Slicknode CLI to deploy the changes. We run Slicknode deploy, which will then compare the local changes to the state in the cloud. Then it asks us to confirm the changes. And now it's applying the database migration, it's creating our content type and updating our content management interface. Now let's open the Slicknode console to see what the content type looks like in the data browser. We run Slicknode console with the Slicknode CLI, which will open the browser and take us to our project. Now we can see that we have a post type here in our blog module, which we just added. When we open this, we have a list view of our posts, and here we can add our first post. On the right side, we now have two options. We can hit save and save a draft version of this content, or we can hit publish and make it publicly available. Let's hit publish, change the status to publish, and now we have a published blog post. Let's head over to the playground to see what that looks like in our GraphQL API. We can use the Explorer again to build our GraphQL API. And let's say we want to return a list of blog posts that return the title, the text, and the slug. When we run this query, it now returns the published version of the blog posts. We can also return the draft version of the content. To retrieve the draft version, we can set the argument for preview to true, and when we run this query, it now returns the draft version of the content. Since they're equal, we also get the same result. There's a lot more functionality in the Slicknode API. The best way to explore it is to just use the Explorer, build your GraphQL queries, and play around with the API. Now, if you want to connect your front-end applications, all you have to do is head to the project homepage, and there you find your GraphQL endpoint URL, which you can copy to the clipboard, and then use that with any GraphQL client of your choice. To learn more about Slicknode, go check out our documentation. There you can find all kinds of information on how to model your data, how to connect your client applications, or how to write custom extensions with your own business logic. If you have any questions, please join us in our Slack community. You can find the link on our website, sleeknote.com, or here in your data browser. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to see what you build with Slicknode.